Here it is. That moment you've all been waiting for. Fire! Hold on tight, because you're tuned in to Momentum Media's Success Talk. Oh, yeah! With your favorite host, Ryan Durden.
All right, cool. So we're back. I'm here with Marquez Mosier. Did I say your name right?
You did, actually, because there's a battle going on between my family about Marquez versus Marcus, and I go with Marquez. That's how I do it, so we'll go with that.
Nice. Awesome. So on the show, this is Success Talk, Momentum Media. We talk courage, leadership, but most importantly, personal development. So I want to start off with who you are, where you come from, and kind of like your journey.
Well, it's it's one of those things where you kind of think about almost all the time, and then yet you still don't have a concise answer. But I sum it up with when I'm asked to kind of describe myself, I say that I'm an eternal optimist, hopeless romantic, a free-thinking realist is what it comes under. And I kind of like to use the term social loner, mainly because a lot of these things seem contradictory. And that's just kind of how it started. I was raised in a bunch of different worlds. And ever since then, I've seen various aspects and I've looked at things from different people's perspectives. And ever since my childhood, it's just been the fact that I had, one time my mom was a politician. She was a business owner. And at one point I got invited to a fundraiser for then running for president, Dukakis, way back in the 80s. And then on the next time I could have had a Hell's Angel was my dad's best friend babysitting.
Right.
So it was just all over the board. And so my journey just kind of became realizing that the world consists of everybody.
Yeah.
Something that I was taught that there's no right or wrong, no better or worse. It was just that was all it was. And I took that on, and then as I got older and got through my own life and my own trials and tribulations, a lot of things happened to me by the time I was 30. I literally had experienced all the major life events that you supposedly go through, and I had them all done by then. Yeah. And that a lot of that took having to focus on what decisions, what kind of person I wanted to be, and it made me realize how important mindset and how empathy becomes so important. So here we are now at the tail end of raising 4 kids. So the last 10 years have basically been basically with tweens and teens. So it's one thing after another for every day. And it's kind of now I just kind of want to try to be a voice and a resource for other people to realize, you can challenge your situation and challenge the way you think. And it may confirm what you're already doing, but more than often than not, you'll see something different. And that difference is make, the world a difference, basically, as to where you go.
Right. So what are you doing right now? Like, what kind of, I know you're doing some coaching and some personal development stuff. What is it that you actually do?
Right now, I've realized that I lean towards kind of an old school consultant, because the coaching field has become so inundated with people in it, and
saturated.
I'm so specific with just helping people kind of see things from other perspectives and getting their mind right in the sense of where they want to go and what do they want to do, that I've hesitated and I'm kind of shying away from that coaching label, because coaching is much more broad from the way I look at it, and that's needed so that everybody can kind of get on track in the big picture. But consulting is more of a very individualized, specific set of skills, and a lot of it came from the business background that I had. And now I look at it from the reality of I just more to want to be a resource, basically a voice. I call it an opinion of challenge, that it's okay to challenge your thinking. And it's a fine line, because sometimes when you're challenging, it's not always welcome, even when they've asked for it. But I can't even start to name how many times I've been called names and such. And eventually around, weeks, months later, they come around and be like, you know what, I'm glad you did that. I'm glad you had me see it that way.
Right.
And it's you got to have a lot of confidence in yourself in order to do that, because otherwise you're really just kind of a jerk.
Right.
I've gotten enough feedback over the years to realize, no. That's I'm actually coming from a good place, and I'm doing it from the perspective of the person. And that's the biggest thing that I found now, is that there seems to be three schools of thought for personal and professional development. Yeah. There's the charismatic bully, which might be right for you, but may not, and it doesn't really matter to them. So it's kind of hit or miss. And then there's the oversimplification, where someone's just basically cheerleading. Right. And that doesn't, that works only so well. And then there's also that kind of person that wants to shock you, the person that's just trying to get that shock value. And all of those work, but my problem with them is that they don't particularly look at it from the perspective of the person. Right. And by being a realist, it's, a single mom with kids just can't do some of the things that you would on the surface say, hey, you need to do this, you need a time block, you need to put it on your calendar, you're going to need to change your mindset. That's just not that simple. And being able to help work with them individually that's what I like to do.
Yeah, for sure. And so tell us a little bit about your business background. What did you do in business?
It's it started I started helping my dad, because he was like a master mechanic. So he'd get junk cars and basically fix them up, and then I was in charge of selling them.
Oh, nice.
So as a teen and stuff, that's kind of how I got into business. And everyone around me, my mom, because my parents were divorced, my mom had her own business, my uncles, my family, my parents, my dad, although he worked for a big company, kind of had his own schedule. So it was always an entrepreneurial type of feeling. And then as I got into college, I was able to break into corporate, and I was actually in the mid to late 90s. I was in Silicon Valley and all wrapped up in the .com stuff, and all that good stuff. And it was great. But then I had my first kid and everything changed. Yeah. And at that point I realized I don't want to be this corporate ladder climbing it. I will never be home. I'll never see my family. And so I was lucky enough to be able to switch a little bit more towards remote working and consulting. And then I just basically ran with that. I did that a lot. And then when my dad died, I had some money, so I was able to start my own business. And it was an online auto dealership. And then got divorced, and life happens, and then I had to move on. And so I was basically, I got caught up in a lot of the sales and marketing and operations. And that worked out really well. I worked for health insurance companies. I should say health insurance, health industry companies. It was a company that worked with autistic children. And then I worked for a technology company. And then I worked for, Intuit back in the day. And so once again, it was literally being in all these different fields, because technology and health are like opposites.
Right.
And I was able to bring in my perspective to be able to kind of say, well, what about this? What about this? I actually had one manager, I had one engineer tell me he thought it was horrible that I was in charge of the tech support center because I didn't have a very big tech background.
Right.
And I had just enough. And after a couple months, he realized, he goes, you know what? I was wrong. It wasn't that you didn't need the tech stuff. You understood to give us the leeway that when we told you we needed to do this, you could see it from a different perspective and realize, yes, go do that. Because if we could explain it to you, then you knew that it was going to work.
Right.
And went, yeah. I go, that's exactly my philosophy, is that my job is to get all these things out of your way in order for you to do your job.
Exactly.
And that's the same philosophy I use as far as the consulting and the coaching and just talking with people, is that I just want you to see all of that junk and get it out of the way so that you can focus on what you want to do. And that's, I mean, that's the crux of it. And as you can even hear it, it's contradictory within itself. And that's hard to explain to some people because it's not simple. It's not just do this, you'll get better and you'll hit your goals.
Yeah.
It's just never that simple.
It's not cookie cutter. It's personalized, customized to each individual.
Yeah. And because life happens. And if you don't have a dose of realism, you're going to live in a fantasy world.
Right.
and it's easy to live in that fantasy world because you don't get pushed, you don't get challenged.
That's
But
right.
Complacency and apathy are the worst possible things that can happen to someone.
Yeah.
And it's just too easy this day and age to have so many outside influences telling you this is what you should think, this is what you should do, and you give up your power. You just hand it over because it's just easier.
Right.
And that's unfortunate.
Who would you say your target market is?
For the most part, I look at it now is those who have started to already gone on their journey and are looking to advance on that. I work really well with those who almost like an accountability coach, so to speak, or someone who's actually much more streamlined. I had a recent example where we were working as a team with someone who was getting their business started, and she even said it. She goes, "It's great because Marquez, you're the one that's kind of giving me that focus and the mindset and kind of the encouragement and being able to figure out how to get this done in my mind."
Mm-hmm.
And then the person I was working with was really, really good at, okay, do this at this time. We need to get it scheduled out. You need to have these goals. Get back to me on this and stuff. And together, it was a great team.
Yeah.
So my focus is usually working with someone else and working as a team so that we can help someone get to them where they want to be. For me, it's all about getting your mind right. And that's, I've told that to my kids. I almost tell it to anybody who wants to listen. If your mind's not right, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference. You're not going to be able to get where you want to be if you don't have your mind right.
Right. And what are some of the strategies that you use to get people's mind right? I know it's customized to each individual, but what are some of the things that you have them do that's similar?
Well, it's actually, one of them is kind of I call it the 4 C's, where it's communication. It's basically communication, collaboration, captivation, and compromise. Those things are literally, you can break down into, though, everything can fall into that. No matter what the situation is, you can use that.
Yeah.
And then the other one is basically the common principle, where if it starts with common sense, which isn't necessarily all that common. And I don't mean common sense in the sense of common sense being the actual sense that you're trying to eliminate that. It's eliminating the nonsense is what when it comes to common sense. And then you've got the common ground, because without common ground, you can't move forward. So it's a challenge to be able to figure that out. Right. And then common good. And that's usually what you can use to back off and try to be able to reach some common ground with someone. And then after that, it's just common decency. Those 4 elements, basically, if you keep those in mind when you're talking to someone, you should be able to get on the same page as them. If you can get on the same page with them, you can get your mind right, because then you're working forward and moving towards something.
I like it. I love it. So what is your definition of success?
I think success for me is basically having somebody realize that there's options, that they can achieve the things that they want to achieve. And those levels don't have to be anything great. It can be someone who's just looking to, as we always talk about, losing weight, or whether or not it's making more money. But it can also be something as simple as just being able to have a life that's not stressing them out. It's just being able to realize that where they're going is somewhere they're looking forward to. I think that would be kind of where I would use for success, is that you're living a life that you're enjoying and that is taking you somewhere you want to be. Because most of the time, a lot of people aren't. They may not know what they want, which is part of the problem. But that inner struggle of, well, society tells me I'm supposed to be doing this. That is going to, that's going to kill those dreams. Right. Exactly.
What would you say your biggest achievement is thus far?
So far, I would hope that so far. Let's see, that one actually, because are we talking personal or just kind of professional?
Just we'll do both. We'll do one personal and one professional.
Personal is I'm hoping, making sure that, although it's still in process, is getting my kids to be where they want to be. That's the personal one.
Yeah.
And as any parent knows, it's a struggle, but the fulfillment is beyond belief. I mean, that's just, there is no other greater feeling. So I'll have to get back to you in a couple of years on that one.
All right.
And then professionally is actually, I think I've had a lot of different entrepreneur little small businesses and such, but one being that my wife actually has a very successful real estate business, and I learned that I just take a step back from it, and so I'm really proud of that as far as that goes, because she's taken that and exploded with it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that part I think would actually be a success, because it's the exact opposite of what I usually do. I'm usually the one that's more out front and usually the one that's more pushing it.
Yeah.
And this time it was not. It was actually having to learn from her. Realize, no, pull back a little, and together we have that, which enables me to be able to do what I call my passion project, which is this.
Right.
So that's why that turns out to be such a big success, because without that, I wouldn't probably be able to concentrate on being able to help others get them where they want to be. So.
Yeah. So what projects have you done, or what projects are you working on? Any content for?
Well, right now actually I've got it's a little bit spread out. One of them happens to be, I was helping somebody get a media company, or actually I should say a music production company going, and they were just at the very starting point. Yeah. And so it was much more for them just kind of realizing that they could do it and getting their mind right, so that they focused on the steps that they needed to take to get there.
That's awesome.
And he actually, he sent me the incorporation papers, so that's moving forward. And then the other one was that, like I was telling you, that lady that was she's trying to get her own coaching business up for women over 40, and that they can start then. And that was the one I was telling you about earlier, where I was working with someone else to kind of get her jump started. Those are the two main things that I'm working on right now.
That's cool. I'm
kind of trying to transition into getting the exposure of just the message out there, that come on people, we have to have a little more realism when we're trying to do this self-development, personal and professional development. It's not just those three things that I had mentioned earlier. Right. And that's kind of like why I want to get on with interviews and in this industry, like with your listeners, is that it's not so much what we want to accomplish when we just say it, but it's how we're going to go about doing it. And it all starts in your mind.
It all starts in your mind, but if you don't have an action plan to go out and actually accomplish it, then it's never going to get done. So
it's funny, because one of the other, it goes hand in hand, is the performance. All of the good intentions mean nothing if you don't perform.
Exactly. And execute, not just perform, but actually get it done in the long run. Achieve it.
Absolutely. I've learned way back when, where I heard a saying, it was, practice makes perfect. And it was like, no, practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect.
Right.
And it's basically a spin off of course, you do something not until you never get it right, but until you never get it wrong, kind of thing. Yeah. But yeah. One of my coaches a long time ago told me, perfect practice makes perfect.
Right.
Not just practice. So,
not just practice.
Because you don't want to confuse activity with productivity.
That's it. So if you were to have, if you had one message to share with the world, what would that message be?
That you can change your life. We can change the world one decision at a time.
That's it. And where can everybody find you? On social media or on the internet?
Yeah, you can visionperspective.com. You can also find me Facebook at Marquez Mosier. Instagram is under Marquez Mosier. You've also got, and my Facebook page, which is Marquez Mosier /Vision Perspective.
Okay, cool. And one last thing before we jump off here, what is your definition of failure?
I think the definition of failure is when you stop trying.
Oh,
I would just, it sounds so trite, but you can't really fail if you keep trying.
That's it. And what, like, if you did fail at something, it's really not failing, it's learning a lesson.
Yeah, and that's why you can repackage it in order to learn, you know, if you don't succeed, or if things don't turn out, this is more the definite, or this is splitting hairs. If it doesn't work out the way you wanted it to, that doesn't mean it was a failure. Right. That just means that it didn't work out the way you thought it would.
Right.
So you change your perspective. If you actually change that way you look at it, all of a sudden, then it might actually turn out to be a success.
Exactly. It's all about perspective. In the long run, like that's the biggest thing that I've learned in like studying personal development for the past 15 years is it's all about perspective. It's all about mindset and how you view the world. If you view the world to be this horrible place, then that's what it's going to be. If you view the world to be, you know, the universe to help you and to accomplish your goals and to work with you, then that's what it's going to be. So
yeah, absolutely. It's I love to use the change your life, change the world one decision at a time, but the other one is think more, care more, live more. Yeah. And that's just breaking down to think more about the things that you're doing, about yourself, care more about those around you, and then just live more, because that's all you have.
That's it. Any book recommendations or podcast recommendations?
I'm a big Simon Sinek fan, so I like his, and I believe that he's supposed to be coming out with a brand new one. Nice. I actually went a little old school. The one I'm reading right now is by Leo Buscaglia, and back in the day he was called Dr. Love, because he actually taught a class on love at USC, and his idea is that it was actually a forerunner to a lot of the ideas about your self-love and taking care of yourself. And basically his biggest takeaway was you can't give what you don't have. So if you don't have empathy, if you don't have experiences, if you don't have perspective, how can you give that to anyone else? And that was a good message.
Yeah, I heard Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yep. Oh yeah.
He said something. He's like, there's 21-year-old life coaches out there.
It's like you can listen and you kind of go, okay, I see where you're coming from, and I'm sure you have great experiences, and you can maybe it's one of those things. In theory, you probably have a good idea. Yeah. But it helps to have a little experience to go along with that.
A little life, yeah. You have something to offer, but don't call yourself a life coach. Call yourself something different.
Yeah, exactly. You can be a consultant.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about your words. What's that one saying by Mark Twain? It was the difference between a word. The difference between words is like a light and a lightning bug, or something like.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you're saying, because it's obviously totally different between those two right there. So
that's it. Cool, man. Well, Marquez, I appreciate you coming on the show again. We got it right this time.
Thanks.
No static. So I appreciate it. It's been an honor and a pleasure, and I will let you know as soon as I get everything done. If there's anything else that you want to leave with the audience, now's your time.
Yeah. No, actually, I think that pretty much covered most of it, because that one decision, you never know that everything you may want might be on the other side of that one decision.
That's it. Cool, man. Well, I appreciate it. And we'll catch you later.
All right. Sounds good.